Sometimes we watch a movie and it resonates with us on a level we aren't even consciously aware of. The scenes, the colors, the actors, the music, the subtextual undertones of deep resonance echo over and over within our psyche. Sometimes these feelings span and linger much further than we ever expected. For me, nothing reminds me more of this phenomenon than my own experience after watching Midsommar. Welcome to Bullfinger Reviews. For this week's video, I'm going to be expanding on my greatest scene in a masterpiece series, talking about one of the greatest horror movies of all time, Midsommar. For part 2 of this series, I'm going to briefly summarize the story of Midsommar, for the very few who maybe haven't seen this masterpiece just yet, and then I will unpack, in my opinion, the greatest scene of this movie, Danny's dance with the Horga. Significant spoilers ahead for 2019's Midsommar, and let's begin. Midsommar is a disturbing folk horror film that follows a group of American graduate students who travel to a remote Swedish village to observe and study one of their friends' homeland midsummer festival. The story centers on Danny, a young woman grieving the recent murder-suicide of her family, and her emotionally distant boyfriend, Christian. What begins as an innocent retreat quickly takes a dark turn as the village's rituals and customs grow increasingly bizarre and violent, blurring the line between tradition and insanity. As the festival progresses, the visitors witness disturbing acts, including a ritualistic suicide of 2 elders, which the villagers accept as a part of their cyclical worldview. Tensions rise among the group, especially Danny and Christian, as they realize far too late that they are being manipulated. Through drug use, lies, and violence, members of the original group of outsiders disappear. Christian, tunnel vision on his thesis for college, is eventually coerced into a sex ritual for the cult's breeding purposes. Meanwhile, Danny, who is still traumatized by her loss, is methodically and slowly drawn into the commune's emotionally intense rituals, which mirror her own grief and longing for belonging. The climax unfolds at the end of the May Queen ceremony. Danny, after succeeding in the dance of the May Queen, is crowned the victor and must then choose a sacrificial offering. In a tragically surreal and harrowing finale, she selects Christian to be burned alive inside a bare carcass, finally embracing the cult's collective catharsis as she smiles amid the flames. The film ends with Danny fully assimilated into the cult, as her personal trauma is mirrored and exploited by the group's twisted sense of unity and renewal. This movie is a slow-burning, disturbing, and unforgettable story of the predatory nature of cults, love, relationships, family, and much more. It's also a completely twisted story that serves as a perfect Rorschach test due to its meticulously crafted narrative that can deliver the viewer an ultimately gray state of mind in regards to the ending. In my opinion, the centrifugal scene of the film, which is also what inspired me to make this series in the first place, was Danny's dance with the Horga, or the dance of the May Queen. Now, I'm not sure if most of you remember, but when this movie first came out, a lot of people hated it and did not enjoy it. I vividly remember being one of 5 people in a usually packed movie theater watching this movie. After the scene where the elderly couple passed on, the other 4 people simply walked out of the theater and I continued to watch alone. I remember thinking, come on, it wasn't that bad, was it? And I continued to watch alone. And boy, was I glad that I stayed. The feelings I was experiencing as the movie continued to play out, and after watching Danny's dance, was something I'll never forget. And now, 6 years later, after rewatching countless times, the dance and all that it represents is definitively my choice in the greatest scene in this masterpiece. So let's begin unpacking it. Much like the entirety of the movie, it's a vibrantly tragic scene that encapsulates many, if not all, the themes this movie has to offer, in a gorgeous summer landscape. The scene begins with Danny dosing on drugged spring water to break down her walls. One of the leaders of the Horga tells the folk story of the village's struggle with the so-called Black One that long ago lured the youth to dance themselves to death. And in defiance of said Black One, the village now partakes in the dance of the May Queen. This parallels Danny's journey thus far in processing her trauma surrounding what happened to her family. This also touches on the themes of the seasons of life one experiences. From the opening sequence, we are shown the seasonal nature the story will take, and what this means for our characters and us, the viewer. Our journey starts in winter, a grim cold that isolates us from all connection, trying to keep the flames of life, the flames of love, and the flames of connection alive. When we meet Dani, she's going down a dark direction, in a doomed relationship, and lands in a maliciously crafted trap with the situation with Pele and the Horga. Fast forward to summer, we witness this dance with the Cole. When we watch this dance, there are momentary instances of stopping and reversing the flow and direction. As this powerful scene continues, I imagine that this is the season where Dani's direction changes as well as the movie's direction. We've watched this person endure an empty, isolating relationship with the loss of her family and her absent boyfriend. We've watched this person suffer and yet still remain in defiance of the Black One, death. Metaphorically, this dance strikes a chord with me in such an emotional way because I begin to look back at my own life, seasons, my own dance, and I think of times where turning points and points of enduring were necessary, and it's beautiful. But here's where the true masterwork of this scene reveals itself. As the dancers fall one by one, I start to get the feeling that from the very beginning, Dani has been being steered by Pele and the Horga to land in this moment, where she will be crowned the May Queen. Too easily could other dancers have just chosen not to drink the dosed water, and one by one fall to ensure Dani's victory. I get the feeling from all the evidence thus far of her indoctrination that it's very likely she was chosen to win long before her dance. This is especially felt when we notice that one of the first of the dancers to drop out is the girl in which Christian cheats on her with, which is an incredibly tragic interpretation because this is a turning point for Dani for the better, and this better is being indoctrinated and assimilated into a cult. A vulnerable person fighting for their life to endure and triumphantly being set up for a sinister cause. But from Dani's point of view, if you can't tell, does it matter? If Dani finds her family with this cult and feels understood, loved, welcomed, and true compassion, then is that not a victory? It's a beautifully gray paradox in this situation, which accurately reflects the ambiguity of the story as well. In the end, she finds her family, but that family is a cult. But this is better than anything she's had thus far in her journey, but it was manipulated and artificially engineered. She is simultaneously isolated from the outside world, but finding kinship in her new family. What makes matters worse is the possibility that she could be entirely aware of this manipulation, but chooses to allow it. In a scene that happens shortly after Dani wins, she sees her dead family members in the crowd of the Horga. I interpreted this as a metaphorical passing of the torch in Dani's psyche for her new home. Another substantial observation I was picking up on is that during the dance, to show Dani's further bonding with the cult, she begins to speak and understand the Swedish language with other dancers. One could blame the drugs, but I also found this to be a touching moment. The dance is in the Horga tradition to represent the defiance of death, so naturally it's a lifelong struggle to stay dancing, and more often than not, people find allies and kinship in the struggles of life. Them beginning to understand each other during the dance is a symbolic moment of unification through suffering. To further expand on the beauty of this scene, this seemingly feels like a freeing moment for Dani, letting go of the past and pushing through the suffering to begin again. However, this is also tragic because it's letting loose the shackles of her trauma and donning the shackles of the cult. She is but their puppet, dancing along to their ways in this scene. Once a slave to her trauma, now a guided pawn to the Horga's practices. And during the feast, when the word family is said around her, a word that would previously trigger Dani into an episode, she is fine. Throughout the movie, we see Dani's reaction to the word family, and it's heartbreaking and devastating. Now, after the dance, it doesn't even faze her. This dance is a truly transformative moment for the story thus far, and a turning point for the course of the movie. It's this twisted gray line that reverberates on every possible theme of the film. The bright floral setting to a disturbing nightmare of horror, the love and care Dani was searching for, found in a murderous, incestuous cult. The escape of one trauma, only to be transitioned to another if Dani ever discovers the truth behind the deception of Pele and the Horga. And it's for these reasons and much more that this scene is part 2 of my greatest scene in a masterpiece series. I can agree that there are many significant moments in the movie, like when the cult members cry with Dani and hold her in shared suffering, but in the context of the journey as a whole, I feel the dance of the May Queen encapsulates so much substance and depth. Much like the dancers, my mind spins and bends with different ideas and interpretations just about every time I watch this hypnotizing sequence. I feel like I could go on forever unpacking it. This movie is the most disturbingly beautiful tragedy I've ever seen. For now though, thank you for watching. If you agreed, disagreed, or really have anything to say regarding part 2 of the greatest scene in a masterpiece, leave a like, comment, and as always, subscribing is greatly appreciated. I'll see you next week.